Has the death of Elizabeth II ignited some kind of mass psychosis in Africans? Is there a level of psychosis involved when black people mourn her so unreservedly? Welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please support us through Patreon and by buying me coffee so we can continue to bring you this series. Subscribe if you've not yet done so. Please turn on your notification button so you know when we have new episodes. And please share our videos with all your contacts. Seriously though, we need to ask ourselves this question. What does the monarchy represent for us as people of African descent? I'm particularly stumped by the announcement made by the immediate past president of Kenya, who declared 4 days of national mourning for the British monarch. It is one thing to commiserate with the royal family over the death of their loved one, but to see Africans and other oppressed people grieving so publicly is mourning gone awry. In order to be able to actually see Elizabeth II as someone worthy of mourning by people of African descent and others who suffered under the British Empire, we have to believe that she was not only innocent, but also completely ignorant of what her family did that led to her becoming an empress. So, is it really possible for someone who was the custodian of the British crown and who embraced her role as empress so wholeheartedly to be completely oblivious of the various crimes against humanity that were carried out in her name? While the idea that countries like Kenya and Malawi, and even some like Rwanda that were never colonized by the British, have declared days of mourning is alarming. But Kenya's case is almost terrifyingly so. Uhuru Kenyatta's father was imprisoned on the accusation of being a mastermind behind the Mau Mau movement. His name, Uhuru, the given name of the president who declared the 4 days of mourning, actually means freedom or independence. So does Uhuru Kenyatta not remember what the British under Elizabeth II did to Kenyans? Well, here are a few of the crimes against humanity committed by the British against the people of Kenya during her reign. One, which Uhuru Kenyatta should never forget, is the level of attrition committed against the Mau Mau movement when the British detained about 1.5 million Kenyans in concentration camps for the simple reason that they were demanding independence. Kenyans were detained, starved, made to perform forced labor, and tortured. Britain tried to force the detainees to renounce their allegiance to the Mau Mau movement by making them pledge allegiance to Britain and the Queen, this same Elizabeth II. And on the 3rd of March 1959, during Elizabeth II's reign, in Hola, one of the concentration camps that were set up to torture the Mau Mau, 11 of the detainees were clubbed to death by guards under the order of the camp commandant, a loyal subject of Her Majesty Elizabeth II. 77 other surviving detainees sustained serious permanent injuries. The British then tried to cover this massacre by lying that the deaths occurred after the men drank contaminated water. As a matter of fact, anyone who is even remotely familiar with the British colonial system will recall that the Queen's portrait was plastered over every government office, court, or what have you. Her image and name were used to legitimize colonial force, which extracted resources that built the UK and left colonies in Africa, the Caribbean, and other parts of the world impoverished. We are still suffering as a result of that pillage. So, how ignorant could Elizabeth II have been of the inhumane acts being committed in her name, especially given the British tradition which mandates the prime ministers who run the government in her name to brief her regularly? I think the briefing is actually on a weekly basis or monthly, I'm not sure now. But they are mandated to brief her regularly. Okay, now, some may argue that maybe the prime ministers might have tried to keep her in the dark, but she was not illiterate by any stretch of the imagination. There were all kinds of records that she could have called for. There were also newspapers. To be fair, it is possible to become so myopic in the face of the monarchy's propaganda machinery to lead people to believe that she and her family were especially chosen by God to enjoy the privileges to which they were born. And it is a huge and effective propaganda machinery that they use. It is just as easily possible for religious Africans, and we know there are lots of us. So it is possible for religious Africans to believe that indeed it was God who ordained the royal family to enjoy such privileges at the expense of other human beings. However, to quote Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people. Charles III and the rest of the British royal family now have a chance to speak up in ways that their matriarch and other ancestors did not. They need to renounce their titles as heads of states of countries where their ancestors had enslaved and then colonized people. They shouldn't wait for people to say they don't want them anymore. They should have the grace to renounce any title or hold that they have over such countries. People who call themselves leaders of countries that suffered under the yoke of slavery, slave trade, and colonization also need to wake up and free themselves mentally. It is the only way forward. We cannot progress without facing up to our history, so that we do not continue to remain such easy prey to neocolonialization in all its forms. If the British want to continue their blind loyalty to their monarchy, that is their business. They are welcome to it. But just as other European countries like Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Spain, the Netherlands, and Belgium, and so many others, which have chosen to keep their monarchs as figureheads, the United Kingdom should stop foisting their royal family on the rest of the world. Enough is enough. Please remember, Elizabeth's the second's funeral alone is being estimated to cost between 7.5 and $9 billion. Here is how her country made the kind of wealth that would allow them give her such an extravagant funeral. At the time of our accession, Britain's economy was wrecked as a result of the Second World War. The British government then decided to build its economy using a policy that was called the Imperial Resurgence. Kenya's tea, alongside other resources from Africa and other parts of the world that were colonized by Britain, too numerous to name here, was what was used to bolster the British economy. As such, when we watch and see all the pomp and pageantry with all the imperial emblems that will be on display during the funeral, just as during every other major royal event, remember that it is the blood, toil, and sweat of Africans and other colonized people that has been translated into the stupendous cost of maintaining the royal family. Let's not deceive ourselves. Thanks for watching. Please support us through Patreon and by buying me coffee so we can continue to bring you this series. Subscribe if you've not yet done so. Don't forget to turn on your notification buttons and share our videos with all your contacts. But please keep your comments coming. Thank you.